Thank you very much. We have insight on how certain candidates for governor would fare in a matchup with frontrunner Jeff Landry in a runoff.
Sabrina Wilson breaks down the findings in a new Fox 8 Great TV poll.
Our Fox 8 Great TV poll on the governor's race looked at hypothetical matchups for a runoff between Jeff Landry, Shawn Wilson, Stephen Waguespack, Hunter Lundy, John Schroeder, and Sharon Hewitt. The question posed to 625 registered Louisiana voters in the poll conducted by Mason-Dixon was, if a runoff election for governor were held today, for whom would you vote if the candidates were Landry and Wilson? The poll found that 52% of voters statewide would vote for Landry and 39% would vote for Wilson. And a Landry-Wilson matchup broken down by race, Landry would get 70% of the white vote and 11% of the black vote, and Wilson would get 24% of the white vote and 74% of the black vote. Dillard University political analyst Dr. Robert Collins.
Those numbers are expected. I mean, Shawn Wilson is doing well with the Democratic base, even though there's still about 9% of the vote out there undecided. So there's certainly room for Wilson to grow. Now, of course, for him to overtake Landry in a runoff, he would need to break off some of the independents or some of the more conservative Democrats.
If it's a Landry and Waguespack runoff, statewide, Landry would get 52% of the vote compared to Waguespack, who'd get 27% according to our poll. And by race, Landry gets 56% of the white vote and 42% of the black vote, compared to Waguespack, who'd get 23% of the white vote and 36% of the black vote. For a Landry-Lundy matchup, our poll shows Landry would get 56% of the vote statewide and Lundy 30%. And by race, Landry gets 67% of the white vote and 31% of the black vote. And Lundy gets 24% of the white vote and 44% of the black vote. Moving on to a Landry-Schroeder runoff, statewide, Landry gets 51% of the vote compared to Schroeder, who'd get 23% according to the poll. By racial breakdown in Landry versus Schroeder, Landry gets 56% of the white vote and 39% of the black vote, compared to Schroeder, who gets 21% of the white vote and 27% of the black vote. And if there's a Landry-Hewitt runoff, our poll found statewide Landry gets 53% of the vote and Hewitt 23%. And by race, Landry gets 61% of the white vote and 34% of the black vote, and Hewitt gets 18% of the white vote and 35% of the black vote.
So Landry has shown that he is currently pulling a majority of the vote in every hypothetical runoff.
On September 30th, early voting begins, giving voters statewide an opportunity to weigh in on this contest before the October 14th primary.
What I find interesting about this poll is that some of the Republican candidates have said, look, don't put Shawn Wilson in the runoff because he has no possibility of winning in a runoff with Jeff Landry. The problem with that is, if you look at the hypothetical runoff, Shawn Wilson is actually currently running better in the numbers than any one of those Republican candidates.
Now, in terms of the political demographics of the respondents, 42% are Democrats, 37% Republicans, and 21% are independent or other. The margin of error for the poll is no more than plus or minus 4 percentage points. Meg.